Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So nice to see you and be here. I don't want to brag, but I have 3 beverages. I feel so secure. Yeah, and this is a roasted green tea. I don't know how to pronounce it. Hujika? Anyone knows this? Hojika? Roasted. And I heard these like recent findings from a neurologist that you can have pretty much as much green tea as you want, and it really benefits your brain and cognitive functioning, but only 2 cups of coffee. So, yeah. No, it was green tea specifically. I know, somewhat interesting. Kombucha. And kombucha for sure. Keeps you young. Client. Keeps the supposedly microbiome happy. So this is the Wednesday night Well of Being. I'm Eve, delighted to see some new faces and also some wonderfully familiar faces. This is an evening where we come together and get to both practice, but also kind of reflect and listen and digest on some of the core teachings, especially the core teachings in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which is the tradition that I feel so fortunate to have learned from. And we've been making our way through this book, which is a book based in an 8th century text by Shanti Deva called The Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. This is a very popular text, I would say, not only because it's made it until the present day, but many wonderful spiritual teachers have written on it, practiced with it. His Holiness the Dalai Lama every day does the prayers based in this book. And this is a secondary commentary by the beloved Pema Chödrön, who I'm sure many of you know. I like to joke she's like the gateway drug for the Dharma. Many people who here has read When Things Fall Apart, right? It's like, yeah, just really, she's able to bring the essential from these teachings and make them very relevant. And she has wonderful commentary in this book. And generally the way this evening works is I give a little bit of preamble that sometimes goes a little bit longer. We do a practice together based on that preamble. And then we look at themes from the book, but we also engage in discussion together. And this is really important, and I kind of think it's maybe never been more important, at least in the context of our community here, to be engaging in this reflection and in this discussion together. So Wednesday night, there's always a different group of people. So we get to practice this way of creating a community in a single night and developing a sense of care and kindness with each other. And I think when I look around the world at this moment, it is really easy to not create the culture of care and kindness that we want to be living in. And in fact, it's kind of a radical act to decide to really deeply love ourselves, to love everyone in this room, and then to let that love just radiate out and radiate out. And so I'm going to really ask that we try that tonight together. And part of that isn't just, wishful thinking, like, yeah, okay, I can love myself. I've been doing my work, I'm okay. There's like gaps between self-critical thoughts sometimes, right? There's some love shining through. And like these people for tonight, okay, maybe a little bit of love. But I want us to really consider the wisdom and the precision of what it means to love and to love well, especially according to this text. So this text, the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, is how do we really deeply see clearly this universality of human suffering? And then at the same moment, see the beauty and the potential of this human heart. And when we see the two together, kind of the only natural response is to want everyone else to see both too. So that's the call of the Bodhisattva. Can I see this like exquisite universal aspect of what sometimes is called the unconditioned heart of sorrow. Not I'm sad because of, but I'm sad because there is suffering in this world for all beings at all times. Sometimes it's more acute when we lose someone we care about, but it's always there. And it's just this like tenderizing quality when we look towards it. And then there's also, just this beauty of having that open heart that gives us a sense of commitment and of purpose. And when we can rest that and like feel a sense of rest in that, there's so much ease. And sometimes it can seem like, oh, are we becoming a bodhisattva just so we can be more easeful? And while indeed that is a great byproduct, the goal is to kind of live with this open heart while this world is on fire and really get excited and motivated about how to help everyone else do exactly the same. Because it's natural, not because we should, because if we feel that way, we really want everyone else to. I was listening to the news today, and there's this, anybody else hear about, there's a dust cloud the size of the United States that's made its way from the Sahara and is headed towards Texas. And it's strangely not the worst news. It somehow tampers down hurricanes, but just this true, like clear seeing of the interdependence of this world, right? These dust clouds that are moving across that, there's one atmosphere that we share. And the same is true even with our so-called individual nervous system. There's no such thing as individual well-being, right? Like we are all connected. So if we get to taste that sweetness of a heart that feels kind of liberated from resting in that clear, tender clarity of the unconditioned heart of sorrow, of course we want everyone to feel it, because it actually needs to be seated all around us. Tonight, some of the text that we'll be reading is talking about cultivating this quality of positive or spiritual pride, confidence. And I think we see a lot of unwholesome confidence and pride on the world stage these days. We know the consequence of arrogance. It often creates a sense of superiority and betterness, and it can be unbelievably harmful and toxic. But so can the way we react to it. And one of the most difficult things of like a spiritual confidence is a way that we feel, our heart is in the right place, our mind is in the right place, and then we can see others who are acting not that way without putting them down. We were talking earlier today in the dedicated practitioners group about this emotion of contempt, the emotion in which we think we are better than another, we look down upon another, and it just, really creates an obstacle to our empathy and our curiosity. So when we think about the world and a lot of the harm that's happening in this world, it can be really difficult to find kind of the possibility of compassion. Like, how could I have compassion for this person? They're causing such great harm. Anybody struggle with that? Yeah. And you're like, oh, but I'm like a Buddhist practitioner and I should feel compassion for everybody, but not that person. Maybe not that entire administration or like anyone affiliated. And so it can feel very, like we're letting ourselves down or we're kind of getting, one over on us if we try to be kind or have openness towards others. But really, there's an invitation with compassion to kind of have this openness and curiosity, this real ability with kind of a joyful enthusiasm to look deeper. And when I think about, the suffering that is being caused by many people in positions of power these days, I want to think, I wonder what their suffering is like. I wonder what the cause of their suffering is. And then that invites me to look at my own suffering. What are the causes of my suffering? And of course, there's external factors, there's the body, there's financial resource. There's a whole host of external things that can cause difficulty in one's life. But a lot of our suffering is of our own making. Not even because we intend to, but because we just can't help ourselves. Like, not only are we worried about whether or not we're going to get enough work to pay our rent, we worry about it nonstop, right? Not only do we feel lonely and like miss someone who we've lost in our life, we perseverate on, I'm never going to not feel lonely. So it's that extra helping of suffering that we put on top of the everyday difficulties. And I have to imagine that kind of what's sometimes called secondary suffering or kind of self-perpetuated suffering. I imagine that those people who are harming or doing harm out there, or that I perceive to be doing harm out there, they probably have a lot of mental suffering as well. And can I feel, if not compassion for the acts that they do, can I feel compassion for the suffering that they're experiencing? Because like, it's just like mine. I was talking to a friend the other day who struggles waking up in the night with a very busy mind. Anybody? And it's never like good news. It's not like, oh, can't wait to wake up in the middle of the night and be creative. It's like, like hot reels of like what is in our life that feels like it's about to, completely fall apart and drag us down with it. And they said to me, oh, but you're so lucky. Like, you've been practicing, like, you probably have control over your mind. And I was like, sure. I said, I still don't have any control over what pops up, the kinds of fears or worries or perseverations. But there are these like tools and techniques to work with what pops up. And I think this compassion for our own mental suffering, this for me, in my time of greatest suffering, was my only refuge. A time when I had herniated a disc in my back, I'd just been through a bad breakup, I had 2 family members in the hospital, and I was like, oh my God. Just one of those times when everything that we usually use to be okay feels taken away. There's physical pain, and then there's the kind of cognitive impairment that comes with physical pain. And I practice this meditation that we're gonna do together 3-5 times a day. So, because it didn't feel authentic to me to just wish myself well and happy. It's like, yeah, of course I wish that. But to wish myself to be free from that extra layer of suffering that I put on top of whatever is already hard. So we're going to start there, because always think global, act local. We're going to start with that compassion for ourselves. We're then going to include all the beings in this room and online. So hi, friends online too. You'll be included in this. And then we're going to extend outward. I can't recommend that you choose like the hardest person who may be, controlling our government right now, but at least other people who through their own suffering create harm. Because I know that when I am suffering, when I'm struggling, I create harm, like I feel more entitled to be in a bad mood or kind of shut myself in with my own difficulty and not be available for other people. So we're going to try to strengthen this compassion that we have, in just these layers. And really specifically, this compassion for that added suffering. So I'll guide us in this practice, but I know this is a little kind of nuanced of a concept. So are there any questions before we begin about like, what do I mean when we say secondary suffering, or what is the kind of, potential to transform that through compassion? Any questions on that? I guess we'll figure it out along the way. Yeah.
Just the idea of, I don't know how to be aware enough to separate the overlay of extra suffering
Yeah.
from the suffering.
Great.
But is that what the practice is going to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe think of, like, we can do, it's also helpful before we practice to think of, when has that happened for me recently? We don't have to choose the most intense time, but we could choose a time when, for example, I have a beloved family member My brother, who we sometimes don't see eye to eye, and we communicate mostly by email, which I don't recommend because there's no facial expression, there's no vocal tone, like it just comes out very flat, right? And I know for myself, that's like hot material in the middle of the night for me, right? So I'll read this email, and I'll be like, I don't feel understood, I don't feel seen. Then we have, decades of background, right, that you can pull upon. So the one email is, ooh, I don't feel seen and heard. That didn't feel good. That's the pain. Middle of the night waking up, what is wrong with him? What is wrong with me? Why do I let him? Like kind of that extra helping we overlay. Great question. So does everyone have an example they can think of? Anyone here not do that? Just like let the suffering come and go, leaves no trace? Okay. Yeah, good to aspire. Sometimes, right? Sometimes we can just let it go. Yeah.
This might be an example.
Yeah.
I have a family member that I'm have grief over, worried about their sadness, but I did a feed your demon about
Cool.
my grief, and I saw that I was doing a lot of wishing, wishing the person was different.
Yes.
So that feed your demon kind of helped me see that the wishing is not helpful.
Beautiful.
To me or to the person, because then they can tell I want to be a different person.
Yeah. Yeah, and for friends online, sorry we didn't use the mic, just using a feeding your demons practice to meet that desire that someone else be different. I love that desire. It's like, thank you. It's a good one, very juicy, because it kind of goes on endlessly. And then to really work with, instead of the directed towards the other, that difficulty we have in like letting them be as they are. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so let's get a comfortable posture for practice. We'll practice about 25 or 30 minutes. We have Tom at the door, so we're totally safe in here. If it's your first time, maybe just, looking around and checking out the space in the room and feeling a sense of this is an okay place. Or if it feels, uncertain, you can make sure you have a way to have yourself feel at ease here. There's often, even though the weather isn't that good tonight, there's often loud music and cars in this center. Wonderful way to work with like the illusory, temporary nature of all phenomena, including sound. So no big deal. No big deal. So let's find a supportive posture. Beginning by taking an inhale and inviting a lengthening up through the spine. And a couple more, imagining that as we inhale, it's almost as though we could feel the crown reaching farther and farther up to the sky above. A lightness through the entire length of the spine. And the most gentle kind of pulling together of the shoulder blades. Allowing the chest to open. That upright spine signifies a sense of dignity and purpose in our practice. We gently soften through the face, softening between the brows and softening the jaw. Softening and relaxing through the neck and the shoulders. Through the chest and the belly. And then using the exhale to release and melt, allowing excess tension to simply fall away, be supported by the earth beneath us. And then balancing this beautiful sacred posture of practice as we inhale, inviting that vividness and clarity of the upright spine. And as we exhale, relaxing, releasing. Continuing breath by breath, bringing our full attention and focus to the entire cycle of breath, the inhale all the way through the exhale, inhaling vividness and clarity, exhaling ease, openness, relaxation. And of course, the mind will wander, get carried away with distraction, images, memories, plans, no problem. As much as possible, simply kindly relaxing, releasing, and then returning and refreshing your interest in the breath. To help us further establish ourselves in practice, we invite a quality of stillness to the body, settling the body into this quality where there's nowhere to go, nowhere to be. And we can find this sense of being able to fully arrive in the present moment of our body. And even while there is the natural sensations and movements of the breath, we find ourselves aligning with the stillness, the mountain-like quality of the body. So for a couple breaths, just feel, sense, or imagine a body settled into a natural state of stillness. With this sense of continuing to find the stillness of the body, we can turn our attention to the quality of silence. No text messages to send or receive, nothing to scroll or watch. We can simply invite an inner quality of silence. Of course, there's still thoughts and memories and images, but we prefer or we lend ourselves towards this quality and opportunity of silence. Just like that moments before the sun is rising, before the birds are awake, just that beautiful new freshness, that quiet and silence. Settling the speech in this natural state of quiet and silence. Doing so by really feeling and sensing the subtleness of breath. Even a couple breaths where we are fully committed to that sense of inner silence, to that body of stillness, can be enormously refreshing, like a full meditation practice. We now invite a settling of the mind into its natural state, clarity and warmth, openness, that sky-like quality. We may feel or imagine as though we're leaning back in the mind. Feeling a sense of warmth and spaciousness, and also just that core luminosity, that awakeness, that brightness. If thoughts and memories and images arise, we may notice that this vastness, this openness, gets a little tighter or contracted. So we can just kind of relax, lean back, feel or imagine that sense of openness just a bit longer. Now that we've established maybe a bit of the sense of settling the body, speech, and mind in their natural states, we can take a moment here and consider what is our heart's longing, what has brought us here to practice this evening, what is the aspiration that, like a guiding light, helps us see clearly what we are here for, what matters. This could be something so simple, connection, community. This could be something very specific, working through a loss or difficulty. Just taking a moment and finding the clarity of the aspiration of being here tonight. And then together sharing this aspiration, this wonderful Bodhisattva aspiration, completely outrageous, completely beautiful. May each of us find a way to open our hearts in order to be of service to all beings of all time. And the clear seeing of our own hearts, letting that be a mirror and reflection for all beings. Now shifting our attention and awareness to the mind and memory, and bringing to mind a time in which we were struggling, there was difficulty, there was hurt or pain or loneliness, agitation. Bring it to mind as seeing it from the outside, but recalling the details. Who was involved, if anyone else, what was happening. And especially remembering a time where we added on this extra suffering, where we got stuck, fixated, blocked within our view, our perspective. And opening our heart to ourselves in that moment. When we were contributing to our own suffering. See if we can feel that natural quivering of the heart that is the signature of compassion. The heart that quivers when it witnesses the pain and suffering. Some of us can really struggle to open our hearts, feeling like our pain or difficulty isn't enough compared to others. But let's give ourselves fully to this practice as the bridge to being there for others, letting ourselves feel that sense of care and kindness for our own suffering and for the ways we further contribute to it. Noticing how this feels in the body. Maybe we notice a heaviness around the heart or contraction, muscles in the face or the chest. And with that just essential spark of care, that quivering of the heart, we turn towards our own difficulty. And with the inhale, bringing to mind this difficulty that we've experienced. And with our exhale, may I be more free from this suffering. May I have a mind that is calm and at ease. May I feel love and belonging. Taking a couple breaths here with the inhale, really making real this difficulty, seeing clearly this difficulty. And then with the exhale, allowing the heart to radiate compassion. May I be free. May I know ease. May I experience love and belonging. And a couple more times on the rhythm of your breath, keeping it close and then wrapping yourself with your own heart. You can experiment with doing an exhale with the mouth slightly open, not release and extending. And then releasing the words. And just being with this heart of compassion. Again, noticing what it feels like in the body. And inviting a sense or quality of being a body of compassion. Now expanding and extending our concern. Bring to mind all the beings in this room and at home online. Some of whom you may know, others not. Each of us in this room has had times in which we contribute excess to our own struggles and difficulties. When we feel lonely and we worry it will never end. When we feel anxious, and we amplify those worries. When we feel hurt and resentful, we make a whole castle of it. Bringing to mind just the volumes, the greatness of difficulty and suffering that even without our own ability. We just can't meet, we can't melt these causes of suffering. Letting a sense of compassion for this shared collective difficulty, all of us in this room at times. And again, with the next breath, inhaling, bringing to mind the difficulty of those in this room. And then exhale, may each and every being here feel more freedom and ease. May each and every being here experience a calm mind and ease. May each and every being here know love and belonging. A couple more breaths. Really taking in, not theoretically, but truly, the difficulty and struggle of other beings here. And that heart's desire to be of service, to care, to support. And with that aspiration drawing in, then extending and radiating compassion. May we all feel free and ease, love, belonging. Yeah, letting the heart just feel that the beauty of that aspiration, a desire for freedom, for love and care, for all the beings here. Just as we are extending it, it is being extended to us. So with the last couple breaths, as we inhale in, recognizing we're inhaling in the compassion of other beings, and then exhaling out and sharing our compassion for the beings in this room. And releasing the image of the beings in this room and the words. And again, coming back to the body. Noticing the quality of this body of compassion, this heart of compassion, this mind of compassion. Now we shift our mind to imagination and considering the myriad beings in our world who are causing harm. We don't have to think of a specific individual. We could think of areas of the world, aspects of where there is harm, exploitation, violence, suffering. And without getting into any story about why or how, consider that these beings or being, they also struggle with mental suffering, added suffering. and without condoning or making okay their behaviors or actions. Can we find that same spark of compassion for those who, out of their own suffering and difficulty, by not seeing clearly, are causing harm? And taking a moment and seeing if the mind can connect with this aspiration. It can be very tricky, and if it's tricky, no problem. And see if this quivering of the heart, can it be extended even to those who, out of their own delusion, craving and aversion, causing harm? With our next inhale, bringing to mind the mental suffering of beings who may be causing harm. And with our exhale, may you become more free. May you have a mind of peace and ease. May you know love and belonging. A couple more breaths here, steadying the mind as best we can, extending and radiating this compassion, knowing that this wish of compassion doesn't allow or condone the behaviors and may permeate or penetrate the delusion that creates this harm. Taking our last breaths here, extending out these final aspirations of compassion. Coming back again to the body and the breath. Breathing in, simply being aware of and sensing the body breathing in. Breathing out, being aware of, sensing, feeling the body breathing out. Thank you for your practice, courageous practice. So we often take a moment here and reflect and ask questions and share about practice. And in order to do so in a supportive way, we really have to embody this quality of compassion with each other here. So compassion in our speech, how we're speaking, compassion in how we are hearing and listening to one another, and if possible, even compassion in our thoughts. So that's our goal, because the ability to speak and share and connect is just unbelievably generative and helpful. But since we haven't all ever been here in this way together before, we really need to be quite careful and considered with one another. Can we get on board with that? Bodhisattvas in the making? Yes? Okay, good. So there's a mic there for any questions, reflections, comments. You're holding it. Sylvia, come on, I know you get to practice. How was it?
It was great. I really felt like if I've slept 12 hours.
Oh, a refreshment. Good. How was it to send compassion to these difficult people, maybe?
I don't have any difficult people around me.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna move in. Okay, good. You've done the practice. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else? Question, comment, reflection? Thank you. Be great to hear your name also.
Oh, my name's Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Yeah, this is my first time here, so really happy to be here. It was like really nice in the well, I'll just talk about my experience. It was really nice in the beginning, and then it was kind of difficult because a lot of thoughts kept popping up, and it was this like recurring thought of this one person I'm trying to like release out of my life. But then I kept thinking, like, I kept having the thought, like, I release you. But I wasn't releasing them because I just kept saying, I release you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like forcing the release, but I was like holding on to it even more. But then I tried to recenter myself when we were like doing the compassion thing, because I was like, okay, like, don't be selfish. Like, let's give some love. So, yeah, I was just thinking about like the political climate, and I was thinking about different governments and the people within the governments, and I was like trying to, do the not the task. That sounds like, you know, the thing. But yeah, and then I like felt bad. Not bad, like emotionally bad, but like I felt like I felt bad for them.
Yes.
But then I was like, wait, but I think I should feel bad for the victim. But anyways.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, but like I can also still feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Anyways, that's mine. That was long.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome. Great to have you. It is, that's the interesting part about compassion is, especially when we're having compassion for that shared experience, we do become curious, and actually there's a different way of relating. And I know it sounds a little, like maybe a little too sugar-coated, but I really think that people cause harm out of delusion. Because causing harm feels bad. Like when I've hurt a friend, right, it feels horrible. Like you lose sleep, you don't feel, so it's like, how could you perpetuate all of this harm? It's delusion. You're not recognizing it as harm. You think it's righteous. And then to imagine someone who's caused harm waking up suddenly and realizing the harm they've caused, like, wow, like that would be, and so to kind of imagine their suffering like ours. And it's so interesting that, you got a little dose of your own mental suffering right in it. When we're ruminating about someone, where what we'd love is to just not have them in our thoughts. And yet that's the extra suffering. It's not just that this person is hard and we don't want them in our life, it's that extra, right? And, when we have ruminative thoughts in practice, it can be so like trying to use the mind to calm the mind doesn't really work. So one suggestion or one thing to do is to notice, where do you feel in the body that sense of wanting to release? And then just focus on the sensation, kind of let the kind of effort or energy towards release just be. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Other questions, reflections? Who was it easiest and hardest to have compassion for? Okay, Kimberly.
Thank you. There are times when I've thought, I want karma to get that person, and then I think maybe karma already has, and that's why they're acting that way.
Right.
And so that kind of came up for me when I was thinking about difficult people, is that they've been through so much difficulty, and that's why they're being difficult.
And I was trying to think about world leaders, and I thought about my brother, I'll be honest. So it's like, you can try to Google, and then sometimes it just comes right back. So I think, that being able to see, and it's really tricky with family members because you think you know them, and you get your own delusion of like, well, they should because they didn't, and but that it's in some ways, I like what you're saying, that more global view of the reason they're acting this way is because, right? This is in some ways, this is the fruit of all of the behaviors leading up to this that have been difficult or harmful. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Lucas.
Yeah, my question's about, so during the focus on bringing compassion to, another government, I was like thinking about another government, which I do not like. But then we're about 20 or 25 minutes into it, right? And my like knees and my thighs and my feet were in like extreme pain. And so there was this like interesting play between trying to focus on bringing attention and compassion to this like group of people that I loathe. And then also trying to, so I guess like what's the interplay between like bringing compassion to yourself if you're in physical, like is that expansive? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's great. I also, a little different than some of the other Theravadan techniques.
Right.
If you're in pain, move your body.
Right.
I would say even lie down, supine, great.
I know my last retreat was Theravada, and
Yeah,
it was
what
like, embrace the pain, lean into the pain, you'll
not
find
in-
self-compassion through the pain, right?
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, is there like any worthy
Tibetan
interplay?
Buddhists for like lay down, dance,
All right,
sing it out. And I really, and I love and practice in the Theravada tradition too. I think there is a real time and place
Yeah.
to kind of really see what is pain and what is the added suffering of pain, right? Because there actually is no scientifically validated way to measure your pain. Our pain is how we perceive our pain.
What about the little smiley face scale?
It's your perception of smiley face, exactly.
Opioids, yeah.
And so there's like, the reason meditation has become a worldwide phenomena is because it helps people reduce pain. Like chronic pain patients were the first population that meditation was used on in a secular context. And because they could recognize the difference between their thoughts and their feelings, right? They're like, I'm in pain, this is horrible, and this is horrible is what makes the pain unbearable. And so if you can separate the two, there's a lot of freedom, right? So maybe, there's a little bit of that you can do on your knees in pain, and then like let it go and lay down. That would be, because compassion practice, I should have said this, you really want to be comfortable, because it's actually uncomfortable emotionally. It can feel kind of like tight and restrictive and angsty, or you can be like, I'm numbed out. Like there's just a lot that can happen. So being comfortable.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was like fixating on the pain more because I was uncomfortable with, the compassion.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It's really tricky, really, and I bow down to trying with these, bigger, harder places. How was it to send to people in this room? Isn't that kind of sweet? Yeah, I am really lucky that I happen to know a lot of people in this room. So it's like so beautiful to think of you all, and then these new beings in the room, and like, yeah, in it together. And then at some point, I actually really felt that compassion was being directed towards me. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And I forgot about that piece. So very sweet. Yeah, very humbling. Any last questions or comments? Friends online? Any burning questions? Yes, please. Hi there. Feeling better?
Yeah, I think the antibiotics are starting to work on the cat fight. And yeah, the kidney stones are done. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, that's looking up. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I have one person right now that I'm in a difficult situation with, and I think, I had a couple people to choose from though, like most of us do, I think. But I think the thing I'm struggling with most right now with those type of people in those situations is this place where like we're trying to be good bodhisattvas, and there's like, I think an aspect, at least for me, of kind of responsibility, almost parental, towards certain people who are not practitioners, who are struggling and maybe sometimes doing things that are hurtful to me.
Yes.
And, I maybe have some ill will come up or whatever it might be, and trying to stay in that place of compassion while, also making sure that I'm being kind to myself and compassionate to myself through that, and
Yeah.
trying to find a way to find some like magic upaya that, I can use to help both of us to
Yeah.
get through it. I don't know.
I think
What I
such
came up
a
with
beautiful,
my person right now, I just asked him,
yeah.
would it kill you to ask me how I'm doing once in a while?
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, just like, that's what I came up with. It was like, that
Yeah.
was my way of trying to be soft about it, but say, hey, human
Yeah.
over here too. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Very,
That's what came
very
up for me.
relatable. Yeah. Very relatable and very kind of like quintessential and classic. It's one thing to imagine, these big bad actors on the world stage, and then there's just like our inconsiderate people in our life, right? And it's
Yeah.
really where the rubber hits the road. And I think your question is a good one, and actually relates a little bit to some part of the reading tonight, which is, how do we kind of meet and work with the many, many, many people in the world who are not on any kind of path of kindness, awakening, or empathy. Not just saying people who aren't Buddhists, people who don't really prioritize that sense of care and connection with others. And that can be at a broader scale or a smaller scale. And this, the beauty of kind of clear seeing, it's often when we are stuck in that, like, couldn't you be more, or why are you always so? It's like we're not really accepting the truth of what is. There's like a kind of wisdom clear seeing that's needed. And what's interesting is, from the Bodhisattva point of view, it's just wonderful alchemical fuel for the fire. Like these difficult people who are entrenched in their habits, it's not about us helping them see how they could be more compassionate to us. And I laugh because, like, oh man, it's so understandable. It's like seeing clearly where they are, but without getting like hooked by judgment and being like, yeah, they're so like that, you know? And instead, like meeting clearly, this is where you are, that doesn't work for me. Love you, bye. You know? Like that, sometimes you need those boundaries from like 300 or 3,000 miles away. And then you can practice compassion from here, but without like extending yourself out there. And hard to do, you know, hard to do. Sometimes there are many people in our lives that we can't create great boundaries with because we are dependent on them or vice versa. They're in our sphere, they work for us, we work for them, God forbid, right? So we sometimes aren't able to just create that like clear, clean boundary, but we always have that option of like, am I willing to just see this for what it is? It's hard, you know, because we want to believe in a world in which we have slightly more control than that. And we could change it and fix it, make it better. And to have compassion for that, like, oh, I still think I can change things that are actually absolutely outside my control. That's cute. And then, you know, it's like that over and over, like, let it go, like, let it go, or let it be. But it's such a beautiful question and such a hard thing to do. So I want to bring us back to this text here. And we are still in this chapter of enthusiasm or heroic perseverance. And this enthusiasm, this quality of the Bodhisattva is what, you know, it's such a daunting task to wake up for the sake of all beings for all time that we need this kind of real buoyancy in our ability to move forward. And it requires this kind of sense of confidence from us. And so, let's see here. Yeah, and in this part here, there's like as some of you have been coming know that Shantideva, so the original author here, this 8th century Indian teacher, sometimes he uses techniques that are quite dramatic to try to get our attention. And in these next couple stanzas, he really is trying to highlight how do we build confidence, like how do we recognize when we are on the right spiritual path. And he suggests that we can do so by looking at the kind of pair of opposites. What might happen when we align with our core values and virtues of generosity, kindness, and compassion, and what might happen when we don't. So he says here, the body's pains, anxieties of mind are every fear and trepidation, separation from the objects of our wanting. Such is the harvest of our unskillful deeds. If my acts are wholesome, mirroring my mind, then no matter where I turn my step, respect and honor will be paid to me, the fruit and recompense of merit. But if in search of happiness my works are unwholesome, then no matter where I turn my steps, the knives of misery will cut me down, and the wage of retribution for my life. So again here, this idea that it's not actually about what we are doing in the world, it's how we are orienting our mind. Is the way that we are meeting the world one with generosity and clear seeing, that kind of attentiveness, or is the way that we are meeting the world kind of for our own self-grasping? You know, I want more, I want to be more. So this idea, if in search of happiness, my works are unwholesome. So we've talked about this before, that in earlier parts of the book, there's this beautiful quote, you know, those seeking happiness often trample over the very causes of happiness in their haste. So as we are moving, we're like, oh God, I gotta be happy. I gotta go like get this thing, do that thing, meet that person. And there we are like losing out on that precious like 20-minute nap we could have in the middle of our day. Like it's a silly example, but this kind of hungry ghost, this like always needing more. You know, the hungry ghost has the tiny mouth and the huge belly. They're never satisfied. So that more, this attitude of I need it for me. That's called that self-centered orientation. And really like the entire cause of our suffering, according to this book and cosmology, is self-centeredness. Like every single practice, every single orientation, and not like we, give away everything and we never enjoy a good thing again. It's just we stop thinking it's all about us. We stop trying to, preserve this, fabricated image of ourselves to the world. That becomes less of our focus. And that's and it's true, like that doesn't make us happy, right? That kind of pursuit of getting more and being more is exhausting. It's depleting, it's killing our planet. He didn't know that then, or maybe they did to a certain extent. And so this idea that if we are orienting, if our pursuits are wholesome, meaning they're aligned with virtue, if we are going out into the world in order to enrich, what can be enriched, to find the beauty, to see the beauty, to be the beauty, by offering compassion and kindness, then wherever you turn your step, respect and honor will be paid to you. Not that you really need the respect and honor, but this idea that like that wholesome action begets wholesome action. Again, and this is where he gets even more dramatic. If I will arise through virtue, meaning if I lead a life of virtue, in the cool heart of a fragrant spreading lotus, its petals opened in the Buddha's light, with glory nourished by the sweet words of the conqueror, and live the Buddha's air within the presence of victorious ones. So if we are acting in alignment with our virtues, meaning being of service, having that open heart, we will essentially be born into a fragrant spreading lotus, petals opened in the Buddha's light. Sounds pretty good. The alternative, or if I am acting with unwholesomeness, I will be struck down, my skin flayed off by creatures. The Lord of Death on my body will pour the liquid of bronze that's melted in a dreadful blaze. And pierced by burning swords and knives, my flesh, dismembered in 100 parts, will fall upon the white-hot iron ground. I know, sounds bad. Sounds real bad. And it is a metaphor. It's not as though he's saying, right, like that truly, if you act unwholesomely, you'll be flayed by creatures and the Lord of Death. But it is this, because then he'll use it as an analogy. Like, could there be any robber more skillful? Could there be any blade more cutting and painful than the defiled emotions of your own mind? Right? Like that's his analogy. This horror that you're born into is the horror of the mind that cannot let go, that's self-centered, that has that like preoccupation, rumination, fixation. And it's like, oh yeah, I think I was in that white hot iron ground with being dismembered by 100 parts when I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about, why is my brother still like this? Right? Like that's torture, right? Of our own making, of our own mind. And so I will aspire and tend to virtue and steep myself with great devotion. And with the method stated in the Vajrayana, I will train in confident assurance. And the sutra that he's talking about here, I'll read Pema Chödrön's commentary. In this sutra, the Buddha says that the sun illuminates the whole earth without bias, and the Bodhisattva is willing to work with anyone, no matter how ornery or difficult. In this spirit, Shantideva aspires to go forward with this training. So these next stanzas are kind of almost like pumping yourself up, like I will, just like the sun shines down upon everything with equal light and warmth, I will shine down with my compassion on all beings exactly the same. Totally outrageous and wonderful. Action, the afflictions and ability, 3 things to which my pride should be applied. I will do this, I myself alone. These words define my pride of action. So this idea that we are going to have a positive pride, as Pema Chödrön says, positive pride is energizing, like the spark of life. It inspires and encourages us. Ordinary pride, like the sense of being superior and looking down on others, actually makes us feel weaker. So this idea that the pride of action is a synonym for confidence, and that we can bring this confidence to our actions, also to our afflictions, meaning our difficult emotions, and our ability to connect with the basic goodness that is our birthright. So part of the Bodhisattva point of view is that we're actually already good. We just need to remove some of the obstacles. And if we can, again, reveal our own goodness, what do we want for everybody? Like, to see that innate goodness that they are too. So this beautiful aspiration. Yeah. This next part's a little tricky. When others give themselves to base activities, how can I connive as their companion? But I shall not refrain through pride or arrogance. My best way is to just give up the conceit. And this essentially talks about a little bit what we were talking about earlier, is when we find ourselves with others, and kind of the more, like Pema Chödrön says here, the longer we stick with the Bodhisattva path, the more it breaks our heart to see others trapped in confusion. So I don't know, folks in this room, when you start to kind of see and inhabit in some ways this worldview of, God, I really do think possibly the most meaningful thing I can do here is wake up for the sake of all beings. And part of that means seeing my own shit, right? Taking responsibility for the ways that I contribute to suffering. Then when we hang out with people who are like fixated on blaming the outside world, gets like, we're like, I used to kind of like talking with you about that stuff, but now it's just kind of tired, like that fixation on the outside and not owning, not transforming. Or I think the example here is, people who are, engaging in activities that actually, gets in the way of our heart's aspiration and compassion. So this again could just be getting together with a group of people in which you're, overindulging in whatever kind of intoxicants, food, sweets, drugs, alcohol, not with a conscious intention, but just like escapism. And you're like, yeah, I liked hanging out with you in my 20s, but I don't know, what do we have in common anymore, right? Like that kind of thought of, I'm not sure if just getting together in order to kind of ignore, deny, avoid, and escape my life, if that works. But the key part is in that discernment of like, what are the communities, the friendships, the relationships are supportive. We don't do so out of kind of pride and arrogance, so not that wholesome pride, but that sense of the way you guys are living, so base. I'm totally over that. Yeah, I'm a bodhisattva now. I hang out with the Dharma collective. It's very wholesome. You do it out of this like deep compassion, like, oh man, you're stuck in confusion. It hurts my heart. And you don't necessarily say that to them unless you feel like they're very ready for that reflection, but you hold that in your heart, because it can be hard to make that space and like distance ourselves from relationships that don't work. Because for some folks here in the room, that could be relationships of decades or longer. But you really see how it's undermining, right? I see some nods like, oh yeah. So yeah. Great. Any thoughts or reflections, especially on that piece? I know that one can be a little tricky. Like, how do we kind of bring that wholesome confidence, but not that, sense of better than? Yeah.
Well, I've gotten to the point in my life that I have to set real stringent boundaries on how much time and how close I can be with people who don't have any capacity for introspection.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It can be dangerous for me.
Yeah.
It can be harmful to me. to be in close, constant proximity with people who are unaccountable
Yeah.
for their behavior.
Right.
So I've made it, in the last several years, I've made a point of making sure that I limit the time and closeness that I have with those people. Those people are still in my life.
Yeah.
Some of them are family members. Some of them are close friends that I can only spend a very limited amount of time with. So that's,
Yeah.
and sometimes I feel bad about that in the sense that I feel like, who the fuck am I to judge other people
Yeah.
on that basis?
Yeah.
Well, who the fuck I am is someone who has been harmed
Yeah.
in those sorts of close relationships. Therefore, I've learned a degree of discernment in order to
Yeah.
protect myself in that sense.
So beautiful, Jimmy. You're reminding me again that I keep wanting to teach this half day on codependency in Buddhist practice, right? Because it is that, it's not only like that recognition of the harm, you actually have to see through the fear of losing connection. It's not just, I see that's not helpful for me, I'm going to move away and I'm not going to feel any, superiority. It's also, I actually have to let go of this connection, which feels like safety because I need that. I want that, right?
Right, and it really, it includes, another layer of that, of what you just alluded to, that not blaming those folks.
Yeah,
Not judging them, not feeling contempt for them, but having compassion for them, but not in a condescending kind of way, but in just a real general
yeah,
kind of way. It's like, there's a teacher of ours who says, yeah, I can let you into my heart, but I can't let you into my house.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, thank you so much. Anybody else, questions or reflections? Yes, Lucy.
Yes, I can definitely relate to Jimmy. And I find it hard too because it's, specifically with me, it's always family for the most part. Some friends in the past, that you just gone different paths, but that happens less and less because, life changes. But it feels crappy because, yeah, every time I talk to my brother, like, hey, when are you gonna come down again? And I'm like, I don't want to come down, to LA, because like every time I come down, I judge, I try not to, but it's just like they're stuck in certain patterns. So it's kind of like Jimmy. I'm now finding myself setting boundaries and distancing myself because it's just like it's tough to be down there, and it's definitely difficult to not say something, and I try not to get caught up in it, and so like it's always like doing like micro bits of each one of them. As soon as they start like, I call it going down the rabbit hole or talking shit, I'm like, all right, time to go, so, but now I'm just like, I don't even, just don't want to do it. So it's just like space and I guess time,
Yeah, and just to offer a reflection, I remember when you shared about your last trip there, and there was like some serious Bodhisattva activity going on, right? And like, it's not perfect, but I think there's also this way, compassion really needs to be held in equanimity, meaning not just the space and time, but holding forth the possibility that anything and everything could change. Right? So it's like, it's always been that way. And actually, it really could change. And not like an agenda, like this time I'm going down and I'm going to like show this book to him and things are really good. But like, you keep showing up in this same way and without an agenda, but like really that, equanimity kind of as that quantum view. Like it's so much bigger than I know. You know, like whatever were all the contributing factors that made that dust cloud from the Sahara come to Texas, like things shift and change and move and we like can't predict. And so I think it's so hard to have that kind of freshness and curiosity. Like, I wonder what it'll be like this time, you know? And I think that's this, a little bit of that, you know, quality of heroic perseverance.
It is hard because every time I go down, I'm like, I wonder what it's gonna be like this time. And then it's like, it's shitty again, you know?
Yeah.
But so I'm hopeful that one day I wonder what it's gonna be like and it'll be better, you know?
Yeah,
So
and better is so, again, like this such, like you have like the perfect ingredients, right, for a bodhisattva activity. And it's not how we want it, and especially not how we want it for the people we love, because we want them not to suffer. And then we want them to not suffer and make us suffer. But the part of this, all this work is like, how do we relate to what life is offering, you know? So,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, well, let's take a moment and dedicate our time here together, the beautiful reflections and practice. It's like a kind of energy. And we imagine feeling the sense of this energy within us and actually within the field here, this room and online. And placing hands together in front of the heart, if it feels comfortable, a gesture of offering. We imagine offering this energy. So any goodness, any benefit that has been generated through our time and reflection and connection. May this be of service to this beautiful, outrageous aspiration. May all beings of all times be free from inner and outer harms. May all beings of all time experience a life of peace and ease. May all beings of all time know their true nature and feel love and belonging. May all beings, as long as time and space remain, become absolutely free. So beautiful to be with you all this evening.